Hey everybody, welcome back. It's live stream time. It's Monday, and this is Ask Kristen Anything about gentrification, the podcast. Yeah, anything you would like to ask, as well as if you do not bring questions, I will share things that are going on, things that I've been thinking about. First things first, I'll let folks kind of hop on these lives. I should be live on my Facebook page, on my LinkedIn page, on YouTube, on X, as well as Instagram. Now, my Instagram folks, as we've talked about, if you've been in one of these before, I can see you. And this week, since I'm at home on the couch, I can see your questions because I'm using the front camera. But it's better. And of course, if you signed up in the StreamYard link, but if you want those questions to pop up on the screen, if you want to get more perspective, as you see here, I have other things like the Batman pillow in the background. Please, hop on any of those other formats. Uh, if you comment on LinkedIn, I can see your question. If you comment on YouTube, I can see your question and put it on the screen. And of course, in StreamYard. So, once again, I'm so happy that folks are finding these and that you're finding benefit in them. I am really glad that I have been able to be a resource. And one of the things I did want to open up before you all start sending me questions, and let me get over to the comment screen so I can see when you pop things up and ask for resources. Let me go ahead. Let me not assume that you had a chance to listen to the podcast. Let me drop those links. They're gonna show up first for those of you who are streaming on all the horizontal social media platforms. If you're watching me on Instagram, it'll show up next. But you can now I have it set up. You can go to the Black Urbanist. You can go to read newsletter. So I'm gonna share two things with you. I'm going to share yesterday's craft newsletter. So what does it mean, the craft newsletter? So I am calling this the front porch, the gentrification defying front porch. For those of you who love my essays, which have a Substack is a perfect home for those kinds of things. And for those of you who noticed that I've been pinging your emails a lot, I really want y'all to know that I'm out here, I'm doing this thing, and I don't want y'all to miss anything that I am doing. So that is why you are getting more emails. I have updated that in my chat. I've updated that I'm going to be doing more of these streamings, that I'm going to be, I have a podcast, and the link to that podcast, well, at least the link to this is, let me back that up. I'm going to link you to my latest episode of the podcast. And now that I've figured out this feature on WordPress that I can embed the whole podcast in there, not that I didn't know these things before, but it's been about 6 years since I've actively podcasted. A lot of the technology has changed. Like there was no StreamYard. Yeah, you could go live here on Instagram, but that's about all we had. Definitely couldn't live stream to all these networks. LinkedIn hadn't really come back yet, at least not for me. So as I mentioned before, I have now put a link in the comments, wherever your comments are showing. Some places are, let's see, you should have a comment if you're following on YouTube, if you're in the Facebook group, and if you are in StreamYard. And let's see, I'm going to just open up LinkedIn here. Hopefully, I won't be um, doubly loud to myself. Also, I hope everybody is hearing me okay. I'm realizing that those of you on listening on the horizontal streams, the audio may be a little wonky because I'm trying to use my normal microphone, the one I use to record my podcast, and it's chosen today to be special. Okay, all right, that should be fixed. Let me go over here in the StreamYard studio, and I'm going to update my audio here. So hopefully y'all are not hearing it. And because I can wave to all my Instagram folks. I wave to you, let y'all know I do see you. I know many of you will be in and out because I'm usually on here for an hour. And this is more optimized for me to chat with you over on all the other, I mean, to be horizontal. Okay. Sound should be improved for those of you who are listening on anything that's connected to StreamYard. All 13 of you today. Thank you across all platforms. So I really appreciate you taking the time and listening today. So yes, I posted a link to the podcast episode, and then I'm going to post the link to my latest sort of essay newsletter link. And then who are on Instagram, you're gonna see like a video recap I just shot of this letter, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. If y'all don't have any questions for me today, or at least questions I can see, I will talk about that. And one thing I did want to talk about, regardless of what your questions might be for me today, I really want to honor and affirm the young folks and our young folks who are on these campuses calling us out, speaking truth to power, because guess what? Gaza is still under attack. Congo, Sudan are still in bad shape. Haiti is still in bad shape. Tigray, that whole conflict within the Ethiopian area is in bad shape. And a lot of us are in bad shape. Um, I have mitigations, and as you see me, if you see me in public, I still mask and everything. I have like a kind of a regimen I use to help me with some of the long COVID symptoms that have showed up. I'm not as severe as some others. I'm very privileged that I've been able to like just be quiet and sit and do things like this and come to you like this. Even though some things are changing in how we do things here at the with Kristen Jeffers Media. Let me just be honest. It's just me, as I said in those emails. It's just me. And I'm actually going to, since you're listening to me here, I'm actually going to throw up my patron note. So for those of you all who read, especially if you read yesterday's email and you're really, really disturbed about how, money is going around our parts, uh, just pause. It's okay. One of the first things you can do is support me. I've got that scrolling. Now, for those of you all who are on Instagram, I'm going to just drop that link here as well. Now, unfortunately, my Patreon was supposed to be syncing to my WordPress, so some of the podcast episodes are missing. Of course, if some of you are watching me on Patreon, and the Ask Me Anything should be streaming. And I usually do recaps of these Ask Me Anythings, and in those recaps, I'm able to share links and everything that you may have missed, like podcasts, like the Ask Me Anything, like the essays, etc. So, but today, in addition to any other links, any other comments, any of your questions that you may have, and you may be sharing with me on various platforms, I'm gonna have this stream down here for those of you, and I know for many of you, like I was just saying, times are tough, times are tight. But one of the things I've learned being active in disability justice groups is that it's those little donations. It's a bunch of us doing the little things that we can do that help us maintain. So if you're just wondering how these student demonstrations are working so well before they get just bum rushed and bamboozled by these oppressive police forces, they work so well. You find them and people are praying, people are doing teachings, people are supporting each other, people are teaching each other, people are helping each other with their homework. That is the community. Our students have definitely not forgotten 2020. 2020 was formative for them. For those of my fellow millennials, much like when those towers fell and when the Pentagon was crashed into, and honestly, when many of us who have been told, go to college, get your degrees, everything will work out. And then by the time it came to graduate, the job market had changed. They had changed the game on us, they had changed the goalposts. And of course, many of us are sitting on student debts. So many of us are also, these are our children too. For many of us, if we were pregnant in high school and early college, these are our children. And so, and many of us, these are our siblings and nibblings. These, we should cover them. We need to support them. And we need to think long and hard about the kind of world we are leaving to them. And we have been saying that before and again. And clearly, what this message is telling me is we're not doing well enough. Yes, we as adults, many of us have been, either if we haven't been attending in-person demonstrations, many of you all like myself, we who have some more, who have other vulnerabilities, have been sharing information. Instagram folks, you know, my stories stay being an educational resource. And those of you who are watching on other platforms, that's also happening there for you as well. So just be mindful. You're going to come to this page and you may be challenged. You may have a nugget plug in your head, or you may agree. And if you want to touch and agree with me, as we say in the Black church, touch and agree with me. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know of resources. Let me know of things that I can share with you to make sure you understand the stakes, and that if you're on the wrong side of this, it's not going to be good. Y'all not going to just be able to like push us down. We're not going nowhere. Just recently, I was reading the laws that were passed in Maryland. Maryland had a little bit of a loophole that said you could discriminate against sexual orientation. You cannot do that anymore, at least starting on, I believe that's a July 1 law. So by July, or no, October 1, that's an October 1 law. So October 1, it's not going to happen. So yeah, go to one of those other states. But guess what? None of those other states deserve you being terrible. I'm not trying to get banned off of here because I want the core message of me to make it. Stop being terrible. Stop thinking that it won't happen to you, that you can't get sick, that people can't forget about you, that your job won't fall down, that your funding won't get pulled, that you know, who XYZ person can or cannot win on the presidential ballot, that they won't bomb us, that they haven't already been bombing us, that they won't look at your child and see your child as a threat. That has been going on for the last 14, 15 years in this so-called country. We have been, many of what we're seeing here, it's a loop, it's a feedback loop. Like I see a feedback loop going on when it comes to our government, how we handle, the fact that all we do is export weaponry. And for many of us, yeah, and I'm speaking specifically to my urban planning folks out here, all we can think through is, okay, well, somebody needs to do it, somebody needs to administer it, somebody needs to hold it up, somebody needs to make sure it's not bad. But your children, our children, are over it. They're not getting no benefit. Remember that these children that are on these college campuses, let's see, it's 2024 right now. Anybody pretty much that was born in 2000 and later, that are under 24, think long and hard about what kind of world they have seen. They may not remember um, September 11th, 2001, but everything else that we have done to make sense of that, to all of this surveillance, all of this policing, all of this doubling down on all those things, that's what we're giving them. Is this the world that we want to create? Are these the restrictions we want to create? We've encouraged them, and they have been online their entire lives. The internet has been fast. Let's not even just existing, because the internet has existed for my entire lifetime, but it hasn't been accessible and it hasn't been fast and easy to access. But for these children, they have had these internet and these streaming services their entire life. And so, yes, they're going to come just like our generation did that. We came to Instagram, we came to Facebook, we came to all these things, and they're coming to TikTok. And of course, Who knows what they're going to go to next? But they're going to something. You taking it away, taking all that away is not going to keep the word from getting out, the suppression from getting out. People are trained. Just like all these folks come to these demonstrations to try to disrupt, people are trained and they are ready. Some of these campuses that are starting a little bit later, if you haven't, if it's a campus that you're like, are they doing something? They're being strategic, or they got something else going on. But many of them that are just getting started, they're being strategic. Here in DC, all of our schools, all of our universities are united on one campus where there's the least likelihood of being disrupted. Now, yes, they have unfortunately have had some disruptions by those who feel like that they don't get their free speech right. But this is DC. This is what we do. This is why people come here. We come here to demand that humanity gets it together. Now, I'm not that person that's all into this is the capital of the free world, because as a black person, as black queer person, disabled, feminist, I know that the freedom ain't free. That particular freedom ain't free. And that is why I'm committed with these platforms to make this kind of work. I'm committed to sharing resources and voices, like Derek Moore, who was on my podcast this coming week, and of course, basking and learning and leaning into hearing from folks like Joyce J. Scott when I was over at the BMA for the Creative Mornings Baltimore. So that's a good segue. Of course, yes, release not just free Gaza, but release the occupation in the occupation of Palestine and all this empirical exploitment. I want us to end fast fashion. I want us to end this enforcement affairs. I want us to provide. I want us to guarantee housing. Now, hold on to that thought, because I'm definitely going to be doing a podcast on just the idea of moving from affordable housing to guaranteed housing and how that differs. So, and that this is another opportunity for you to submit episode ideas. So, just like I have this episode idea of talking about guaranteed housing, just like I'm here thinking and wanting to connect that our earth is not going to be able to sustain us being imperial on top of it forever. There are active volcanoes going. There are sea animals that are revolting, and it is hot here in DC. We're going to break a record here in DC for 90-degree weather already in end of April. Now, coming from North Carolina, we've broken that record several times, but there there are already countries that are not really having a winter because we're seeing 80 and 90-degree and even 100-degree weather in the southern hemisphere's winter. We're seeing all these extra clothings like washing up, you know, even though there's like stains on the bottom of this dress, but I still love it and I'm gonna still rock it and wear it. And that is why I'm definitely learning how to make things. And Les just loves it. Like, let's be real, she just loves it. Like, this was our weekend project, Batman pillow. I helped her like stitch up the tail end. We need to, especially those of you all who are black women and black folks, just black folks that are gender marginalized. Let me use that language. Black folks that are gender marginalized, uh, sexually marginalized, skin tone marginalized. Now, I in the greater scheme of this sorry ass empire, I have this going for me, this lightness. But that's another reason that I'm getting on this microphone like this and speaking up, because, and that's what you're seeing with our young people on these campuses. They're creating that safety barrier. Their faculty that understand what time it is wrapping themselves around them. Those of us who are trained journalists and trained in media literacy, this is why we do these educational moments. That's why I'm happy that I have my voice, and I feel so much better using my voice. I feel liberated, because one of the things we have to do, liberation starts in the body. That is why, and this is I'm gonna drop that bookshop link in. I have Rest is Resistance, specifically for my black gender marginalized folks that need to understand that we were never intended, no matter what our skin tone is, We were never, if we are of African descent in any shape, way, form, or fashion, and if we have any sort of melanation in our skin, we were never intended to have this level of freedom. For folks in my complexion, like, we were sitting in the house, we were listening to them talk about how they wanted to negotiate and enslave us and finagle with us. And many of us are this complexion because there were more women brought over than men, and put two and two together. I'm not going to speak that out loud, but those of you who know, know. And those of you who don't know, there are resources. I'm happy to share them with you. But it's time to get real about what we're dealing with. It's time to know exactly where we stand and know exactly what we need to do. Um, with that being said, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about like how my day to day and how I intend on moving forward over the next few months. I saw a tweet over the weekend from Amani Barbara, and I've been chewing on it. I'm not gonna put it on the screen. I won't pull it up, but I'm happy to link to it. That they and I understand where they're coming from as someone who's been who was born disabled, who went through disabled schools, who went through being marginalized, who went through fire drills where there was no plan for her to be taken out of the classroom, because during the fire drill you were supposed to, if you called on fire, it's supposed to stop, drop, and roll. What if you can't do that? So you're supposed to just get sprayed with the fire extinguisher. And then those of us who were ambulatory, who could walk out of the room, but there were no plans. Like, literally, there are fire safety codes that say leave the person in the wheelchair, leave the person using crutches in whatever room, and hope for the best for them. Hope that the fire department comes and rescues them. This is why it is a disturbing moment, and many of you all, as COVID has made its way, and not just COVID, all these other, because of course COVID is a form of SARS. Many of you now, some of our young folks that are out here in the encampments may not remember when SARS was a big deal in the early aughts. And not to say that it's no longer a big deal, but that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a strain of SARS, MRSA, all these other zoonotic illnesses and viruses, and anything. HIV is still very much around. Like, for people that do not have access to their antivirals, to the pills and the shots and the patches that make you undetectable, then yeah, it's a different world for you. And then of course everything related to uteruses. Anybody Uteruses and ovaries right now are under attack. Uteruses and ovaries are very regulated. And so this is the world that we've that and I say we because there are many times that I wish I should have spoken up more. I remember in 2010 seeing the Tea Party come on the scene, come on to like cable news, and all these people pushing back. I remember at the time in 2010, I was starting to deconstruct and decolonize. Really, I realize now it was more of a decolonization, specifically as being someone in a racialized and gender marginalized body, that I was decolonizing my Christian faith, that was reclaiming God in all their presences that show up culturally, versus worshiping the white Christianity version of the same gods and the same divine presence. And of course, I know for many of you all, that y'all don't even feel that, and y'all go through life, and y'all are secular humanists, and y'all, that's how y'all roll. And that's the point. It shouldn't take a divine presence for us to know that we should be treating each other humanely. Divine presence doesn't help us make sense of what's going on and help us ground and help us in our as someone who does ancestor veneration, as someone who leans towards like the examples of people that have gone before. And for many of you all whose ancestors were involved in creating and colonizing, well, creating colonizing colonial institutions, and for those of you today who still feel like you can't make a move, this is where we are. Unfortunately, we're regulated. We're policed. We're surveilled. We are here. We are here at this moment now. And yes, this is not what many of us millennials signed up for, but things did change. If you didn't remember, things changed on September 11th of 2001. Some of y'all thought that enlisting was the way. Some of y'all came home and it was not clearly not the way. Some of y'all are hoping that y'all can make change and affect change within the walls of power, but we're on quicksand. Our this so-called country's on quicksand, and many of us who are decolonized, many of us who are indigenous to whatever lands, well, let me go back and explain indigeneity a little bit. Indigeneity assumes a relationship of stewardship, not a relationship of creation and colonizing. And so we are called specifically as those of us who are doing land use and land stewardship work. It should be land stewardship. It should not be land control. Of course, yes, you are taught to control the land. We are taught in our planning schools and our geography classes to divide up the land, to honor the borders, to divide uses. And of course, many of us are having this conversation about allowing more mixed uses that aren't industrial. But we need to have a conversation about clean industrial work. Like, we need to have that conversation about how do we get, the modern society, including this computer and this phone that I am using to speak to you today. There is blood in this. There is blood, sweat, and tears in this. Our siblings and our family in the Congo, some of them have died for us to have this many phones and for this cycle. Um, the best thing I can do with this right now is to use these products, use my clothes, use everything I have mindfully and carefully until it falls apart, and participate in things like mutual aid and sharing. So, I want to highlight specifically, I had just seen this from Nikki Mayo. Now, this is more in relevance to helping students navigate the journalism and people who are trying to document things like live direct actions, not just, sharing your stuff on social media. But I am going to share this resource with you because I think it can be helpful. And it'll be helpful for you to understand what journalists are supposed to be doing. What are you supposed to be doing? What is most ethical? We're seeing violations of ethics mainly because we've wrapped our power structures are compromised. Our power structures are all wrapped up in things that they have no business being wrapped up in. So I've shared this resource. And if you are, all of me are connected on LinkedIn, I've commented on this resource. Specifically, it's a resource about covering direct action protests, honoring the commitment to that, as well as, not making yourself part of the story and not spewing a narrative that has nothing to do with what's actually being done, which should be liberation and justice. So I did say, and I when I sit down and I do these, and I'm just gonna pause one moment. Don't head away. I realize that I am not plugged in to the wall, which is important in these times that I am doing this. So just take a pause. Right back. Um, mic went out. That was the mic was not supposed to unplug, but I'm going to plug myself into the wall. Which, yeah, think about that. Like, just think about this for a moment. How many times we have when we are doing these kinds of things, realizing we don't have power and connection to whatever power source we're supposed to be talking to, and that can cut us off. So, 1 second, y'all. right, and we're back. Hopefully, nobody saw anything they weren't supposed to see. But still, let's think. I mean, we're adults here. Bodies are bodies, and so much of I'm just I wanted to kind of talk about this because I got to be honest. As a millennial that cares, as a millennial that's decolonizing, as a millennial that's really realizing what's going on and thinking about, for me, it's like, oh no, the fascism is already here. But of course, I realize now as a relatively able-bodied, I'll say as an ambulatory person, it was, yeah, I've been wearing these glasses since I was 4, and without them, if I lost them, my disability would be amplified. I would need help. Like, and we're in a time where, if we lose, there are many places already on the globe where people don't have glasses. Like, that was a thing. Like, those of you who were in that first wave of shopping at Warby Parker, we were supposed to be donating glasses when we bought ours. Now we've learned that some of those donate one for ones didn't exactly work the way they were supposed to. uh Let me, well, I'll just throw that in when I do the recap. I'll find a link and talk about how in the podcast that I recommended last week about waste colonialism and how our clothing is ending up in the wrong places, is not being used much in the same way a lot of our mobility devices, and yes, glasses for those of us who are severely nearsighted or farsighted, that's a mobility device. um, I bought one of these not just to be cool, but these do have a um, heart rate tracker. The minute I had tested positive for COVID, right before I started my first antiviral, this warned me that my heart rate had jumped up. Now imagine that so many people in other places, that so many people, even here in the so called United States and some of these other countries that are supposed to have it better, don't have that basic access. Many of us are not drinking clean water. Um, Marini Coping, who has known nothing but dirty water since she was 6 years old and has spent ages 6 to 16 fighting for clean water, just posted, yeah, they might that's why they're in Team Vote. That's why they're known around the world, because they've been trying to make sure that they know that we need clean water, that Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water. Jackson, Mississippi's water is compromised. Technically, Washington, D.C.'s is as well. I have had to stop drinking out of the tap, even with just filtration. Not that bottled water is any better, but yeah, many of us are going through things. There's many toxins that are going on here because we have polluted water. Those of you who've read Parable of the Sower, I love to cite that, especially since it's 2024 and we are literally almost careening into the timeline and the storyline of that series. One of the things is that they're having to buy all the water. One of the things is that there are places where they don't have to buy the water, and they don't have to they have guaranteed jobs and guaranteed housing. But when I'm talking about guaranteed housing, I will not be advocating for an Oliver situation. We do not need Oliver. We do not need corporate. We do not need company towns. We do not need to go back to corporate script. None of that. But without this union push, it's happening, and that's why you're seeing unions being attacked. That's why you're seeing media outlets being reduced down. That's why you're seeing funding being pulled back for liberation and justice. There are oligarchs here, the ruling class, those folks. There are people that just want to make money off our backs, and keep it moving. And maybe today you are benefiting. You're still in good shape. You still have everything you need. You're still eating regularly. You're still eating what you want. You're still living where you want. Your children are doing the same. But far too many people have learned and seen that that's not the case. And I definitely realized that early of work that there was still a measure of privilege that I had. And I know everybody hates hearing, oh, privilege, 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 but privilege really speaks to the truth that we have certain things that help us. And we have a lot of things that benefit us. that we have access. That is one of the things. If you listen to episode uh, 3 of the podcast, in episode 3, I talk about the 3 things that we need to eradicate gentrification, which, yes, gentrification is one of those processes of empire that displaces. And yes, gentrification usually displaces. Actually, it does displace. It may not like displace immediately, it may not displace everybody, but it does disrupt. And then that disruption, that's a displacement. So those things that we just take for granted, people don't have. And right now, specifically in the Gaza Strip, people are being blown off the earth. And then in Sudan, there's starvation. And in Congo, there's being forced to mine things. And in a lot of other countries where what, all the places that are on the backs of your clothing labels, on your side your electronics. And here's the thing: it's nothing wrong with countries having an economy and making their own stuff. I think every country that can like should make what they can. Of course, any resource that's there, we share with them. But if it's finite and limited, then we come up with another option to use that resource. Like even everybody's excited about electric cars, but lithium or not? Is it lithium? One of those things. I don't think it's lithium. Um, it's another mineral, but there's a mineral that it is in electric car batteries that is needed, and that it's present in Ukraine. It's present in Congo, um, coltan. Like, yeah, those things are real. Like all of us who are Black Panther fans, imagine if vibranium was real, and imagine if coltan had the same effect that vibranium had, and those folks, instead of being um, oppressed, would be relieved. And of course, y'all see I'm in my Target Pride dress from last year, and that's the other thing. Like, we take for granted that Target's gonna support everybody. Like, we get excited when we see the Pride collection. We get excited when we see the Black History collection. Yes, Target has done well to bring more Black people. This is not a tap around drag, because I'm not gonna drag my homegirl. That she is for a straight Black woman. She is exactly who I expect her to be. But for me, as a Southern, I'm a North Carolinian who's left the diaspora for a different reason. It's because I'm Southern and I'm queer and I'm disabled, and I need to be in a place that supports that. I need the scaffolding to support that, and that is not there. Like, and is never, and in many cases, it's never been there for my folks who use mobility devices, who are mainstreamed into uh, educational systems. Uh, We're having this debate over self-diagnosing autism. Now there are websites now that give you the actual clinical tests, and what a barrier is for folks who want to get the official diagnosis is, one, for many people in many states, it is still very legal. There are loopholes around ADA. ADA is not like there's not an ADA agency. ADA is a mandate, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, for those of you who aren't aware. And then, of course, we're seeing in Canada where, because there's more disabled people, rather than support said disabled people, people are being encouraged to euthanize themselves. People are, instead of like giving them resources, people are being encouraged to just give up and go, leave the earth, just die. And this is not a drag against like people who say, enough's enough. I decided to yield my spirit to the ancestors. That's one thing. But the government should not be doing that. The government should not be waking up and choosing to and telling you, hey, we don't want to take care of you. Oh, your legs don't work. Oh, your brain don't work. None of that should be um none of that should be a barrier for entry or a barrier for access. We need to take care of everybody, and we need to tear down these walls and borders instead of spending all this wall and border money. instead of those of you who are in planning. I know some of y'all are feeding your families based off these laws, but there's a will and a way. And that is what our students are showing us, that they're coming together on these American campuses and globally. The young brother who got suspended from Harvard, like he was one of the first people to get suspended for this latest wave of Palestinian activism, launching back to October 7th when the escalation happened, where the true escalation happened, where we're getting to the point where we're seeing entire parts, cultural resources, hospitals, universities. Gaza does not have that right now. Haiti does. There's parts of Haiti that don't have that right now. And for many, and in many states in the United States, if you are a trans or non-binary person, you don't have that full access right now. So many people have lost access to resources. That is what we are talking about. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing here, and that's why I've started this work. I'm highlighting specifically because gentrification is my wheelhouse. It's the thing that I've studied. It's the thing that I wanted to not be true. And this, as I'm getting ready to record this week, I want to really record. I know I do this on these Ask Me Anythings. Of course, if y'all have questions, those of y'all who've been coming through and seeing me and wondering if you have questions, if you're on Instagram, I'm waving at you, letting you know that I see you. I know I've been on for, this is an hour-long stream. And those of you who are on all the other networks who want to ask me something or comment or share something productive. Now, y'all know what kind of house I run over here. Which is probably why some folks are not watching these, listening to these, because the stove is hot and they're boiling and they can't hang. But if you can hang, and if you want to challenge yourself, and if you want to be here, and if you want these young folks on these campuses to have somewhere to come back to, all they are asking for us to do is do the right thing. Give them the opportunity. And that's been a lingering thing. Like many of even our communities of color, because we are afraid, we are not diversifying our leadership. We are not we are not diversifying enough. We are wearing ourselves out. I'm getting ready to read Nonprofit Quarterly, and I'm actually going to drop this link in the chat. This is going to be my reading material. Nonprofit Quarterly. I believe this is a monthly. Well, I think they are quarterly. So they come out in quarters. Now, of course, my browser is, since I got like 11 things running on it, it's not acting like it wants to run this. But I'm about to read through this this thing that's very real for me. And I forgot, I usually try to put the articles on the screen. So yeah, this is an article I'm getting ready to read about the dilemma of Black female leadership. And as you see, if we're going with how I present in the world in an office traditionally, and what I lean towards, yes, I present traditionally feminine. I own that, even though I'm indifferent about gender, which is called agender. If those of you were wondering what it means to be agender, it means you're kind of indifferent about your assigned gender. You may still do a lot of the things of your assigned gender. You still may have some comfort levels, but there's other things that you're like, I don't do that. I'm indifferent. Don't put that on me. Don't make me do this performance. Those of you who have heard that terminology of performance of gender, I will, in some future things, share some of those resources with you. I also will probably start preparing some more resources I want to share on these, especially if y'all don't bring me questions. If you bring me questions, I will answer questions. If you don't bring me questions, you will get my unsolicited thoughts and my unsolicited rambles for an hour about things we need to hear. But many of you are coming back. Many of you are listening. I appreciate that. And one thing I want us to sit with this week is, for many of us who are in situations, Instagram folks, I put a link up about the dilemma of Black female leadership. If you just want to go over to Nonprofit Quarterly for this month, Nonprofit Quarterly or at least I think this is their quarterly. That's the point. Nonprofit Quarterly. Nonprofit Quarterly is focusing on specifically Black women's leadership and the specific things we deal with in non-governmental and nonprofit organizations globally. This is a global issue. In fact, a coalition of women that I've been meeting with, they actually presented this at the UN In Geneva, they went to Geneva during the UN meeting in Geneva, and they presented on this issue of Black Afro diasporic women and gender marginalized people having difficulties in non-governmental organizations, and how it is a danger to our earth thriving that we are exploiting labor globally. And our specific the specific way that my labors in non-governmental and nonprofit and community work and activism have been exploited. And earlier, I'm going to throw my bookshop.org link back up on the screen here. If you go to bookshop.org/shop/Kristen E. Jeffers, I have in my bookstore, I have Rest is Resistance, I have Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. If you are reading that article and you're struggling, read those books. And then if you want to learn more about our little coalition, reach out directly to me through all my direct messaging channels. I will get you in the loop, of course, because of safety reasons, because we do have people that come in these groups and agitate. But if you are ready to learn, ready to rest, ready to release, ready to decolonize, resources are here for you. And in this bookshop.org, I'm adding resources every single day. In fact, my goal is to have the bookshop be as big as it can be and have all those things that I want you to read right there. And if you listen to the podcast, I made a joke that is, if you don't want to support that website, it starts with an A. But I do realize we live in a globe where, as Black and brown colonized people, racialized peoples, marginalized peoples, like, our labor is the backbone. Like, we're the backbone of this. Many of you all saw that Amazon, about Amazon, how they shut down their stores, their Amazon Go stores. And let me actually throw that in the chat. Amazon Go, they shut down the stores because one, they had just 1,000 people in India who were actually making sure that when you walked in those stores, that the checkouts were getting checked out. Yeah. You can't make this up. Now, this article that I'm posting, I found this, I just literally Googled it. It's on GeekWire. They're just shutting it down. And they've laid off, in this case, this says in this article, which is dated April 3rd. And this is also why Google is not as stringent as it used to be. I'm Googling specifically, let's see. Okay, let me actually go. I'm going to add this other article. This article kind of gives you a sense of like where they still plan on using Just Walk Out at other places, even though it's not as like technologically, it's literally people in India or in a different time zone of wherever they're using the software, double checking if they actually were able to use it. Actually, this is the GeekWire article that I just mentioned. This is like an overview of why they're closing these stores. And then here's the NPR article of how they're getting rid of this Just Walk Out technology, because effectively it was never, one of the things that Amazon wants to do is like they have humans, and part of the reason it's a human rights violation is they're trying to work humans as hard as completely possible and try to mechanicize humans. Now, yes, that's kind of what we do when we go to work. We're helping somebody and we're taking burdens off. But the AI and the robots are supposed to be doing more things. Like right now with me streaming, technically there might be a person helping with quality control, but they shouldn't have to help with quality control because we coded the apps to read. We've made the machines be our assistants. But in this case, we're talking about another low-wage labor scheme in a non-US country, even though we have our warehouses are relatively low labor. And yes, I do this sitting here right across from basically the Amazon Olive Bar, which, oh yeah, by the way, they're closing their walkable grocery store in that Crystal City area. And really, I will say that the placemaking, even though that was the prompt, The true placemaking is done by some, people at the business improvement district that are actually have vision and actually have planning vision and want to see the world do well. Many of us who become part of these placemaking initiatives and who benefit from these global oligarchical companies giving us money to put out our little Adirondack chairs. That's what they're called, the ones that lay back and they're wooden. They're called Adirondack chairs because they're from the Adirondack Mountains. Like that's a craftsman. And so yes, let me in my last 10 minutes with you here today, I want to make it clear that the power of the people. If we don't work, the world does go like the way, because we've industrialized this world, we've mechanicized this world, but it is people powering the industrialization. It is our voices, it is our support. We always have a choice in how we show up in the world, even though sometimes that choice is coerced, even though it doesn't always feel like a choice. Sometimes there's just so much environmental prevailing measures that make it feel like not a choice. We always have a choice in how we show up in the world. And every time I come on here and I come on these recaps, I really just want us to be mindful of that. And I especially want us to be mindful of this week. It's been grievous to see this destruction of, yes, 100%. My Instagram commenter here, yeah, thank you for that reassurance. We have to leave the world better. And I want to say hey to my cousin who came through. And let me just give a shout out to my family for a moment as we end this hour. Thank y'all for loving me. Thank y'all for not saying, okay, Kristen, you are different. You are, and yes, I do still identify with the lesbian community. Last week was Lesbian Visibility Week, and we had a wonderful time uh, being able to explain why, and specifically these colors matter in our flag. Like this square right here comes from the palette, and then this is actually, so most people don't ever see the gay pride flag, but this is the actual gay male one. And then of course the purple and the black and the yellow are the non-binary. The blue and the pink are also the trans flag. So yes, these stores can sometimes get it right. And also this was designed by a black designer. Like the Target collaborations with all these black artists are spot on. They are doing well. They are choosing great people. There are wonderful products, and people are good stuff is being sold by black Americans and the black diaspora and African diasporans in the stores. But ultimately, like the folks, and that's something else I do want to share. I don't remember if the Stonecrest Market. Oh yes, the new Black Wall Street, the Stonecrest Marketplace, which is open. So basically, um a Target shut down in the Atlanta metro area, and of course we Atlantans, I know, basically y'all just have a big place and y'all got all these cities, and y'all need to keep it together. Y'all need the cop city either. Shut that down instead of caping for this cop city and being upset that y'all students don't want Biden on campus right now and all of that stuff. Let's model some of this. Model making sure that our businesses, like one of these big businesses leaves us and abandons us, and we come together and we pool our businesses together. um the the white world will tell us that our businesses don't matter, but those of you who listened to the hot topic portion of last week's podcast, which, let me throw my direct link up to the podcast on here. I want to make sure, actually I'm gonna put back up on the screen for those of y'all who are streaming on the platforms where you can see the screen. Let me go back and put up episode five's link directly and on the screen. You can just go, the easiest way to get to this, blackurbanist.com, click on read newsletter, scroll down to the second post, and that'll be the podcast episode. And if you have missed out on any podcast episodes, you can listen to everything back. And of course, Apple, Spotify, and all the other smaller podcast players YouTube. So I had wanted to do more than just these live streams on YouTube, but I over the next few weeks I'm gonna be working to make sure that I have at least the audio with a screen like of the logo, so you can just at least put the podcast in your YouTube queue, and so while you're watching YouTube, you can kind of flip back and forth between listening to me as well as listening to these previous Ask Me Anythings, talk back moments with me. And yeah, as I mentioned before, bring your questions. And I today, those of you who are watching on the horizontal platforms, I got this scroll on the bottom, patreon.com/Kristen Jeffers. If you want to, I too am a black business. I too, to reflect Langston Hughes, I too am America. Even though sometimes I'm like, could I have gotten more of a choice? But my ancestors are here. They were stewarding the land here. They were doing different things here than just being tyrants. Um, and then one other thing I forgot to mention. So, let me talk a little bit about production schedules as we wrap up here for this week. So, I do these Ask Me Anythings, talkbacks, live streams specifically on Mondays. Those of you who watch on Instagram, you don't get as much of the links and everything depending on like where I'm recording from. Sometimes I record here in the house. Sometimes I go to one of our rooms. Last week I had tried to like not be able to see you all and wave at you all. And I realized, okay, well, y'all are on Instagram too. So Instagram, y'all know, y'all don't get everything, but you get my voice, you get my smiling face, you get whatever I decided to put on today, which today I chose the Target dress that was designed by a black queer person. I hope that Target will have more backbone this year and not take out the trans pride stuff, because this pink and this blue, we still are here. We are still valid. Humans are humans, and everything about your gender is that's part of the colonial thing. Like everything don't fit, but humans are humans, and we all deserve to be here. Like I talked about earlier in the hour, your disability should not keep you from being here. Your skin tone, your sound of your voice, like none of that should keep you from being able to thrive on the earth. And so I want us to, yes. My cousin on Instagram is saying, yes, Target is shady. Yes, it is. Despite Tabitha Brown finally getting all her food back, we know Target is shady. And so for those of you out on the horizontal streams, I put up that I have another post. Well, obviously the podcast comes out on Friday. I'm really leaning on this week talking about my specific basic needs. I've been talking about the overarching things that the world needs to defy gentrification and to end gentrification and to start this decolonial process. And my cousins also mentioned that Walmart isn't a lot more shady. Like these big box stores are shady. Like the world is shady. Like so many institutions in the world are shady right now, and so I'm coming to you here with the podcast, and I'm talking. I think I'm going to talk specifically and record an episode, and I actually might record it and make sure I do have the video turned on so I can talk about my specific basic needs. And those of you who are wondering who wonder in the back of your mind, hey, Kristen, you came from North Carolina so much. When you coming back? Well, that episode will answer that question. And then, of course, I have a really, really hot topic that I've been hot topicing on for years. And that is as the world heats up and we are worried about youngins once again, that North Carolina coming out. Children, youngins, young people that are out here on the streets living their best life, and we don't like what they sound like, and yet one child pops off and there we go, we gotta lock them all in the house. So teen curfews is going to be the hot topic this week, I know that for sure. And yeah, I think that'll be a good segue, not just to talk about how I've been saying teen curfews are trash for over a decade, to talk about the things that I personally need to defy gentrification. And yes, another thing that was trash was unfortunately my hoodie. Those of you who are on Instagram saw that my Defying Gentrification hoodie just disintegrated. Once again, fast fashion does not work because sometimes the garment goes kaput immediately. But yes, speaking of garments and everything, Sunday afternoons is when I am coming to you all, since I kind of merged my newsletters. So those of you who follow me on Chris Pattern, my more art focused Instagram, and who are interested in, yeah, the fiber arts. I have my case here today. It's too hot for me to put on my sweater now. I wore my sweater to Automatic last night, as you saw. You've seen the email. And then I'm pretty soon I'm gonna put up a video on Instagram, like a little kind of bit, and I might throw it on TikTok too, because I'm gonna use that until the phone's off, until they decide what they want to do with it. My voice is gonna be there as well, because I know you can benefit from it there. And so on Sundays, I talk about the art that I've been doing, the artistic people, Joyce J. Scott, legendary. So I'm going to clarify in the video, I say that she's Carolinian, like her family is from the Carolinas. She was born in Baltimore, but her family's from the Carolinas. And like she was part of her family was a great migration family. And I also had put a tweet up earlier about how I'm in a kind of a new great migration. I'm in a state, I'm in a jurisdiction that's better on like disability and queer rights, and that's why I'm here. But it's different. It's not necessarily my home state, but finding my fellow like folks that have had to move around and navigate the world, and finding kinship everywhere or globally, finding kinship with fellow earthlings. That's really what I'm about. Like, yeah, there was a default setting, and so, on the nose, the title refers to literally our noses, because a lot of us Black folks that are North Carolinian, that have a lot of other races and peoples embedded in us, that many who stewarded this land and who are here before everybody else, the nose is a thing. Now, my nose, I broke my nose. Well, actually, I kind of bent my nose, so it's a little bit more swollen than it used to be, but it kind of fits in. It's kind of there, and I'm learning to embrace my nose. Something I want to do for my patron people, and I've had it. I got the patrons been scrolling on the horizontal feeds. One of the things I want to do for the patron people is when I do my next round of merch, I'm I'm sketching out a sketch of the logo, the podcast logo, with that, and it's going to combine an older logo I did for Black Urbanist, where it's my head and my cities. Yeah, 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 because it's coming. So yeah, I'm sketching, and you'll see this video shortly on Instagram. In addition to this live stream, I may experiment. Another thing I may experiment with Mondays is like splitting the Instagram and the horizontal feeds, just so y'all can have more stuff on the Instagram. I don't want y'all to feel like deprived because I can't put stuff on the screen in the same way. One day I will have an assistant, and guess what? Patron. I'm pointing to it. I'm on the horizontal feed and I'm pointing to it, but also I will pin. I think I can pin my comment. Let's see. I think I can pin. Yep, I sure can. I have pinned that Patreon link for the last few seconds or minutes that I am live with you here today. Patreon.com/Kristen Jeffers. Patreon.com/Kristen Jeffers. Or you can buy the books in the bookshop. But if you become a patron, there are levels. It's actually more affordable than it used to be. But if you go to that higher level, the new higher level is going to be a garment that does not look like the one that got destroyed. It is going to be a high quality garment that I'm going to handpick myself, and it will be well worth you pledging that level of support. Also, Substack folks, if you are on the newsletter and you get it through Substack, go ahead and consider a paid subscription there as well. I've lowered the rates for that, or you can go ahead and pay annually. Thank you to my annual. Let me go ahead and thank everybody. Thank you to my annual, to my existing patrons. Thank you to my annual folks on Substack. Thank you to those who purchase in the bookshop store. Thank you to all of y'all who inspire me, who love me, who care about me, and of course, yes, obviously, the best bae in the world. Les is very busy, as you all know. Those of you who are working will know this is a busy time. We're getting in the bike bump, so she is very busy getting things regulated. And so, yes, her and her pillows, her Batman pillow here that's here on the couch, are bringing us a lot of joy. And you're going to see some more stuff come off that green sewing machine. And you can learn more about the green sewing machine, what I got from Baltimore Creative Mornings, and why I've been doing a lot more connecting with the arts, and Automatic right here in DC, which is so wonderful. And I did not get to see the whole thing, but I did get to see some key people that I wanted to see and meet some dope people, especially when we went again last night. And I'll talk even more about being at Automatic in the next newsletter, but they're a little bit preview of Automatic in this social video that's coming. So You can always watch these replays back. Those of you who are on YouTube, there will be a playlist for these Ask Me Anythings, talkbacks. This week's podcast is out and it's out everywhere, working on YouTube. And then I gotta run and do a couple more things as this contract I'm on ends. All those things situated. So yes, at Black Urbanist is always a place to find me and to find these Ask Me Anythings. At Chris Pattern is a great place to find my art. And Substack, LinkedIn. Of course, shout out to all our LinkedIn people. Yes, if you're worried about, if you want to get me, if you want to keep me from Instacarting, pledge to that Patreon. If I get enough Patreon people, I don't have to try to shop in the grocery store for somebody besides myself, but I don't mind doing it. And yes, I'm looking for artist residency calls. I am reviewing RFPs. If your project team is just right, I have a project team note on my Calendly. My Calendly, like a lot of my other things, is just calendly.com/Kristen E. Jeffers. Book that section. And if you want to be on the podcast, go ahead and book a Defying Gentrification one-on-one. We don't have to record right on there. We can use that to be our pre-call. And I would love to share your story, your professional expertise, or if you know somebody in a community, an elder, a friend who's a good storyteller about the changes of your neighborhood, send them all over to me as well. So I'm going to cut off the link for this week. Thank y'all for coming through as always. And until next time, y'all know what I'm about to say. Defy and eradicate and end this gentrification because we don't need it. We need to be humans. We need to be land stewards. And we need to love on each other. So love y'all. Okay. Okay, on Instagram it's doing it. On Instagram it's doing the heart thing. So yes, that is when you put that heart up, it should emanate from your core. That's what we should be doing, emanating love from our cores right now. Take care, y'all, and talk soon.